The world will never run out of oil. Ever. People don't understand how much oil there actually is in the world. Even just the United States. This article right here from 10 years ago is a perfect example. The then President Barack Obama stated that around 2012, the U.S. had 22.3 billion barrels of crude oil in proven reserves. And the U.S. consumes a little over 7 billion barrels of oil a year, meaning that the strategic reserves at the time were only for 3 years. Yeah, in those 10 years, the U.S. has doubled its proven reserves to 44.4 billion barrels. And that's the same with countries all over the world, because in that time, oil extraction technology has been improving year by year. But even that logic is faulty because the US doesn't rely on its own oil. The US is part of the world market and oil is traded worldwide. It is a whole global commodity. The US imports a great deal of its oil as well. 52% of our oil comes from Canada, 7% from Saudi Arabia, 3% from Colombia, 4% from Iraq, and 10% is from Mexico. And the entire world has about 1.6 trillion barrels of proven reserves, 47 years left of oil with current global demand. But even that's not the reason why we're never going to run out of oil. While the world mostly gets its oils from just wells that pump it out of the ground, there are two other sources that have a lot of petroleum: shale and oil sands. Right now, the United States has the largest shale deposits in the world, over half of the entire shale supply, totaling at the most conservative estimate, about 2.1 trillion barrels of oil. There are over 2 trillion barrels of tar sands. Most of it is in Canada. So just with the shale and tar sands, we're talking an extra potentially 4 trillion barrels of oil. Now, world global demand is about 100 million barrels a day, totaling at about 40 billion barrels of oil per year, which means that there are an extra 100 years just with shale oil and oil sands located in North America. But it's expensive. It takes 12 barrels of water to get out 1 barrel of shale oil, while it only takes 1.4 barrels of water to get 1 barrel of oil from Saudi Arabia. So the only way that the world would shift towards getting oil from shale or tar sands is if it just became so expensive to get out of the ground the way everyone else does. And lastly, something that is having a profound effect on the energy markets today and will have the most profound effect on energy markets in the future is that the world has become much more fuel efficient. We are designing better engines, better vehicles that can run off of less. Even more than that, we have developed electronic vehicles. Cars that do not rely on gasoline or diesel or anything that's extracted from petroleum at all. Electronic vehicle, or we call them EV sales, have skyrocketed since 2016 to over 1,100% of what they were, especially in China. And China is now the world's largest oil consumer. In fact, electric car share of the overall car market has risen from 4% in 2020 to 14% in 2022. 29% of all the electricity generated in the world comes from renewables. Just like the world primarily relied on coal for most of their energy for well over 200 years, it then moved to rely on oil. And now, since we've been relying on oil for over 150 years, it is time for the world to move on to something else. Oil is still going to be used for energy and manufacturing thousands of products, but it won't be given the priority that it has now or even in the past. And chances are, in 100 years or 200 years, that oil in shale and oil sands will just be left there forever because we won't need to even extract it.